Welcome back to the art and science of difficult conversations, where we believe when you communicate better, you live better. As always, I'm one of your hosts, Chris, and I'm the owner of Leadership Potential, where I help new leaders navigate dysfunctional cultures and teams. And as always, I'm joined by my co-host, Lucie, who owns Mind Fittery.
Which is mental fitness gym for leaders, their teams, and their families too. And today, I cannot believe it, Chris, that it's almost the end of season 2 of our podcast.
Whole year has gone by so fast.
Time flies. And as we reflect on the end of season 2, and in our next episode, you will hear our insights about what we learned from season 2 and what are the best episodes so far. But we were also thinking about reflecting on our practices and what were some of the wins that our clients experienced. So this is what we are bringing for you today. Chris, what would you say? What kind of wins stand out for you from your clients this past 6 months, let's say, or year?
Yeah, I would say one of the ones that was really cool is even, and I'll talk about this during our recap episode too, is we had an episode a few months ago with Summer Miller about how to have layoffs ethically and compassionately. And I actually then ran into a friend who's the deputy director of a nonprofit. And she was telling me that they were actually thinking of doing layoffs because of the loss of federal funding and all this kind of uncertainty and all that stuff. And she was like, it doesn't feel great to rank people. And we'll have to lay off like at least 5 or 6 people. And so I said, actually, we have a podcast episode. We just did this. And this person did a really good job of helping us think through what to do. And so she was happy to listen to it. And I didn't hear back from her because a couple of months went by. But then she came back and it was incredible. She said it was so helpful because her executive director wanted to start like ranking who is the most productive and things like that. And she's like, well, no, actually, this episode we have a better framework. And so they were game to hear it. And so they did all the work of kind of thinking about what the structure of their program is, what it needs to be in this new future. And they were able to structure things in a way that they only had to lay off one person, which I think is a huge win.
That's amazing. Yeah.
Right? To go from 5 to 6 to go to one person being laid off, which is, terrible for that one person still. Not great.
True. Yeah.
And it's still better than that 5 or 6. And it's interesting hearing how they had to think through, instead of ranking the people, they had to start thinking about the job functions, the duties, and being more thoughtful and objective as opposed to this person is nicer, this person communicates better, quote unquote. How do we know that? And they were also able to facilitate the conversation with her in a way, this person that was just, she was describing that it wasn't contentious. There wasn't a lot of fighting. She was still sad, very upset. But I think it was powerful. They gave her the choice of, does she want to continue working for 3 more weeks or does she just want to peace out right away?
Yeah.
And I think that was powerful to give her some control over a situation that's totally out of control. And so it was an opportunity to really put into action some of those things. And I think it was powerful. I think it was a great use of that. And I think it also speaks to some of the cool concepts we talk about on this show.
Amazing. Well, kudos to them. I kind of want to ring them the winning bell. Really kudos to them. And that shows the power of implementing of the information and the knowledge and taking the time, effort, and energy. So really shout out to them and that they saved jobs for many other, for 4 or 5 more people that they didn't have to let go as a.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think and also the courage to have the pushback and say, no, we're not going to rank people, or not that we're not going to, but I don't think we should rank people, right? The courage to say we should try this other way, try it. And then also the courage to have the conversation in a compassionate way.
Absolutely.
That is still recognizing their humanity and allowing them to have some control over a really difficult situation, which is powerful. And I think so that speaks to their dedication to their staff and their wanting to create a good culture.
Absolutely. Yeah, kudos to them. And I'm sure also the impact on the people that are still staying is completely different than if 6 people were let go.
Yes. And exactly. It's so much harder to control the message, right? Because 6 people are being laid off. You're dealing with multiple emotions. It's amplifying. Yeah, it's absolutely difficult. So I think it's really powerful for sure.
So I'm hoping for you as listeners, you can also pause and reflect out of all these conversations that we've had, what is one lesson that you can implement? And what would be the result that you want for your company, for you as a leader? for your manager, maybe, or your leadership team. Chris, I'm sure you had so many other wins and success stories. What other success story comes up for you?
I'll share one more, and this is not based on our podcast at all, but it's about a leader who was struggling. He actually oversees 3 different teams, and he was struggling because he just was not having time to focus on his own tasks because each of his team leads kept coming to him with issues and problems, and they were not talking to each other. They were essentially the silo effect, right? They're not talking to each other. They're bringing everything to him. And he was just like, how do I get them to talk to each other? How do I get them to realize like my role is to do something else for them? Like I'm here to support them, but in a different way. So we talked it through and he realized he just never had that conversation to begin with of like, this is what my role is. This is how we work together to do this. And this is how you can work with each other to do certain things. It was incredible. In the span of like 20 minutes, he realized, oh, I just never did this. I could easily just sit them down to talk about this. And so he did. He sat them down, talked through this is my role. This is how I want to support you. And also, how do you want to solve problems with each other and issues? And instead of coming to me, because it's just wasting everybody's time to do that.
Nice.
And he said it was incredible. The meeting went much better than he thought because I guess he wasn't thinking about it, but they were also frustrated by having to go to him for everything, essentially wait for his schedule to free up or wait for him to be able to answer these questions. And so they were much happier to say, okay, now I can go to this person directly to solve this or ask this question and there's more clarity around, okay, this is a problem I can come to you with as opposed to a problem about this I can go to somebody else with. So that clarity, I think, which I don't know if you always bring up or somebody else brings up, that clarity is kindness, right? From Brene Brown. So I think that's true. I think that's very clear here is those clear structures, clear guidelines, clear processes, they make a big difference. And being willing to have that conversation and share with each other, and he was blowing it up in his head a lot more, thinking that they would push back or they would be much more frustrated with him for not being better at answering their questions in the moment. But they were more than happy to have the conversation because they were just like, we just want to do our work without like interruptions. So it was a great win for him to be able to just sit down and figure this out with them.
Wow, that's powerful. I'm hearing 3 things. One, it seems the recurring theme is the power of pausing and realizing, okay, we never discussed it officially, actually. And having that conversation, how much change it can create, just having a few conversations like that and really addressing the course and asking those questions and setting expectations and creating that clarity for everybody.
Yeah,
The second thing, what I was hearing is often in our heads, we make it scarier than in reality it is. And
that's
so there comes the
absolutely.
courage to really not believe all the voices and all the fears in our head, but taking action.
Yeah, the fear of the unknown, right? We don't
Mm,
know what's going to happen, and that's hard for people.
yes, absolutely. Sorry, you wanted to say something before.
Well, I think I'm just highlighting the same thing is that we play things in our heads so much. And this episode didn't come out yet, but we interviewed this guy, Nikki, who's going to come out, and he talks about the story about having this conversation with his co-founder because things were getting worse and worse. And we asked him, like, what made you say you have to have this conversation? And he said it was a realization that things weren't going to get better. Things were 100% going to get worse if I don't have this conversation. At least they have a chance of getting better if I do have this conversation. But you'll have to listen to hear the rest of the story to see how it turns out. But it was interesting to hear about him, how he navigated that and how he felt he had to do it eventually. And he actually felt he waited too long to have it.
I love that. Question for our listeners here. Are you feeling that you are waiting to have a certain conversation? And what would it take for you to have that courage or to just take that step? So also you can have the success story and you can then email us and send us how it went. We can ring you the bell here too.
Absolutely. We would love to ring the bell for you, for all of our listeners and all the successes they're having.
Yes.
But enough about me. I'm wondering, what about you for your clients and the work you're doing? Because you're seeing a whole lot more. You're doing whole lot too, and you're always busy. What are some of the successes your clients have had recently?
Thank you. To be honest, as we prepared, it was very hard for me to pinpoint just one because there's been so many people, especially past year. I was very focused on one-to-one work before I start groups. That's coming. But one story came up for me, as you've mentioned just now, about the difficult conversations with partners or even people to maybe, okay, we need to separate. And that reminded me of a conversation I had with a leader where they were working with, it wasn't an employee, they had an independent contractor working for them. And it just was not working out. And my client has a very compassionate heart. She had a lot of compassion for that independent contractor going through some different things. And at the same time, it was really hurting her. It was hurting the team.
Mm-hmm.
And her default was also, it's hard to have the conversation. I don't want to hurt their feelings. And in our coaching, we prepared for having that difficult conversation. She also had another discussion with her manager about it. And so finally, they laid it out. They created, in a way, an improvement plan. And if nothing changes, they had set very clear expectations, gave him a certain time. In the end, it didn't work out. They still had the conversation in a respectful way. So she, even though it was hard for her, she felt really empowered after because she honored her values, how she wanted to show up. She knew she did her best and gave the fair chance to the person.
Yeah.
And at the same time,
Yeah.
respected also what works for her and for the company and the team.
And that's all you can do.
Absolutely.
That's great. That's great that, well, not great that it turned out not great,
Yes.
but it is great that she was able to get the courage to have it. I'm curious, what did you work with her on to give her that she felt more courageous to have that conversation?
That's what we did. We look at if she doesn't have the conversation, what are the consequences of that? What's the impact on her? What's the impact on the team, on the project? And she became really present that if she doesn't do anything, if she doesn't have the conversation, it's hurting the team, it's hurting the project. And it's also not helping the other person, the independent contractor, really take ownership and accountability. And therefore, it's not really helping them. It's not even kind to them in a way.
Yeah. Yeah. And you said she's the kind of person that wants to help. She wants to be kind. And yeah, I run into a lot of people who describe themselves as servant leaders. They want to help the people and they allow all these behaviors to happen because they take on extra work from their employees or their team because they want to help.
And so looking at actually that's not being kind. That's just delaying and that's hurting the company in a way it's hurting them because maybe they're not in the right role. Maybe they could take on another project that's much better fit for their skill and for their time availability, let's say.
Yeah.
After that, they found another fit and it's so much different and so much better. She's so much happier. Everything runs smoother. Which, if they didn't have the conversation, if they didn't make the decision, they probably would still be struggling with that person trying to really make it work. So that was one success story for her. Even for her, it was a big personal win because she's working in a male-dominated industry, and she is really trying to own her voice.
Nice.
And
Yep.
so that gave her more, yes, I can lead still with heart. I can still have a voice. She's speaking up about what she wants, what she doesn't want. Giving feedback to people where before maybe she would not be giving the direct feedback because she didn't want to have the pushback. So she's growing as a leader.
That's awesome. That's kudos. Kudos to her. And
Kudos
that
to
gives
her.
her confidence, right? Because it builds on that. She's like, okay, I know I
Absolutely.
can handle this.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
So
I
she's
love that.
also happier at work.
Yeah. That's awesome. And so I shared two victories. You have another one in mind?
There's so many stories, and because my specialty is around emotional intelligence, mental fitness, and strategic intervention, there could be stories related to work. Often there are stories related to how do I manage stress? How do I manage my energy? I have so many things to do. How do I navigate that? Maybe I can share one mindset from a recent client when she started coaching because she felt almost burning out and she was working really hard. She wants to have high quality of her work, not just getting it done, but also getting it done the right way and on time. But she noticed her personal life was suffering, her health was suffering. and the stress levels were just increasing. One
Yep.
of the tools that we did was from the positive intelligence that I'm trained in. We look at how our brain can sabotage our well-being, our performance, our success, our relationships. We together looked at the different strategies of our survival brain, and she realized how much her internal critic was trying to beat her to perform, to put another time, another hour, take on tasks for people rather than delegating them, rather than coaching, just saying, okay, I'll do it myself. Where she ended up taking on everybody else's tasks. And so
Yep.
one of the wins was just realizing, wow, because of my own fears, wanting to have the control and wanting to have it done perfectly, I know that maybe the other people are not going to do it my way, the perfect way. And so just really changing the mindset. Do I want to make it perfect, or do I also want to have more ease and less stress in my life and have it balanced? What it would look like if I coach them, if I teach them to fish, coach them to fish, rather than giving them the fish all the time.
Yeah.
Just that small tweak. So she started delegating rather than coaching, rather than, okay, I'm going to do it. She created some inner boundaries with herself. No, I'm not going to say, I'm going to do it for you. Just that small step gave her extra time. That within a few weeks, wow, Lucy, I already feel I have more time now to catch up on really my own priorities, which decreases the stress a little bit. So it's still work in progress. We're still working
Yeah.
on that.
Yeah.
But already she's noticing these small shifts and relief just within weeks, basically.
Yeah. That's powerful. And I think that's why, I'm sure that's why you love working on emotional intelligence and why you named your company the Mind Fittery, right? Because it's so powerful the way our brains impact everything else, right? Our thoughts of ourselves, the world, that impacts how we're going to feel and behave in all these different situations.
Yeah. And one of the mindsets, the perfectionism. Inner perfectionist, I hear from clients, Lucy, I want everything to be perfect. I really have a high standards. But what happens, it creates the extra stress because in reality, nobody is perfect 100% of the time at 100% of things. How it translates to work. Let's say the client wants to work on the presentation to make it beautiful, to create the perfect size of the fonts that everything matches, the perfect pictures for it. And they spend so much time on making the presentation beautiful that they don't have enough time to even practice it. Then they are stressed out during the delivery. And they don't have time all the other things that they need to do. That creates sabotage of our performance.
So, Lucy, if people are listening, they're like, I'm struggling with that. I'm struggling with that mindset around how do I manage these difficult employees, or how do I figure out how to delegate because I'm trying to hold on to this stuff and I'm feeling stuck because I'm not getting things done because I'm holding on to everything and I need to delegate. How can they get in touch with you to work with you around that stuff?
You can always message me, go on my website. There's a form to contact me, submit your question, submit your challenge, and then we can get on a phone conversation or Zoom call and explore. How can I help you? What is your challenge? What would be some ways to support you if we are a fit? Coaching is such a personal service, and my win is if the client gets a win. So I'm very
Absolutely, right?
committed. So go to my website. I am creating moving forward. I'm creating group programs. That's exciting. And you'll
Okay.
hear about it more in our next episode. But Chris, enough about me. What about you? How people can reach you?
I would say if you are listening to this and you're like, I'm interested or I'm curious, what would it look like to also figure out how to fix my team or fix my leadership style so I can get things done, or lead this organization through a crisis? Email me, myleadershippotential@gmail.com. Email me, let's chat, let's talk about it and see if there's a good fit for maybe it's not me, maybe it's somebody else, but let's see how we can support you. I think that's the whole point is, it's not about how good we are at this. It's really about the stuff that our clients are able to do. It would be a waste of an episode if we just talked about this is a cool technique I did in this coaching session, because it doesn't matter to anybody else, right? You don't
Exactly.
care, we don't care, right? Like other coaches might care because it's just like stuff, inside baseball stuff about how we're asking questions. But That's why we have this podcast. And so we'll continue this podcast. We'll continue figuring out how do we help people navigate? How do we help people communicate better and live better in all aspects of their lives? So